Okay, episode 10, The Beast Within. This is such a good title for this episode, and you will see why. So, this is episode 13 in air date order, but it's number 10 for us, watching it in the correct order. This is kind of a locked room episode in that, like, it all takes place pretty much all takes place in the hospital. So yeah, locked room episodes. I think there's another name for them as well. It's where a TV show has an episode that's like lower budget because everyone's in one space together. So there's not a lot of not a lot of extras, not a lot of different locations and stuff like that. So it's usually one of the cheaper episodes. But I think it's good because often the really creative episodes come out of that as well. Anyway, we open with Caleb having a nightmare. So he dreams that he's in an asylum hallway, but it kind of looks like a prison. And there's like a guy at the end, like just in his pants. It's kind of creepy in itself. It's all like dimly lit and stuff. It's very like Goosebumps Halloween kind of vibes. Yeah, and like hands sort of reaching out between the bars to grab him, and the guy at the end of the hall, the sort of like last cell, is calling out for his father, and then the sheriff shows up and shows him I think it's a razor blade, and the man cuts himself, and then Caleb wakes up screaming. So then we have the credits. It's a really good little opener, actually. It's very effective. So then we have a man in a military uniform, and he's shopping for a calculator watch. It can change the channel as well, so it's very of its time. It's pretty fun. He wants to give the clerk $5 for it, and obviously it's worth more than that, so he pulls a gun on the guy. And then we cut to Ben and the sheriff in the car, and Ben's talking about the ex-husband that we saw in a previous episode. He's being a bit nicer, but he's bragging about his prosthetic hand and trying to like be all cool. And Ben feels like his son doesn't look up to him anymore. So I was like, Ben, it's not your fault. You live in Trinity, okay? But the sheriff gives him a pep talk, and they get called to the store where this guy is. On entering, the store clerk shoots the robber, and we learn that the robber is a man called Artie, who is Ben's brother. So that's our little setup. The sheriff was taken hostage. He doesn't carry a gun. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. I guess when you're the sheriff like this, like, you don't have to worry about guns. So, you know. But yeah, he basically convinces the guy, because he's been shot, he's like, Artie, you should go to the hospital, which he does. Caleb is there telling Dr. Matt Crower and Gail, his cousin, about his dreams, and he's upset about them. And then Artie bursts in with the sheriff, and it's the guy from Caleb's dream. So yes, he does have a striped shirt on in this episode. Artie wants the bullet taken out. The sheriff kind of hints that he hopes the doctor gets shot in the situation. And this is where my cat left the room. So Grim always watches stuff with me, and but he and I both hate the sound of fire alarms, and Grim just like left the room because the alarms go off in the show, and he's just like, nope. That's a horror movie for him. Anyway, Ben turns up and tries to sort stuff out. So there's a moment here where the sheriff sarcastically asks if Ben is the middle child. Like, I don't know why I find this so funny. He just loves like saying mean stuff about Ben. Anyway, so basically Ben tries to talk to his brother Artie and tries to smooth things over. Artie wants an ambulance, but it's weird because he doesn't want a getaway car. He wants to go back to this other ward that he was on. So we find out he escaped from an asylum, and he has some kind of a plan. He handcuffs Caleb and Gail, and so that kind of keeps him in one room, I guess. Yeah, and so then we find out that he has a bomb that he's put in his own stomach, and if his heart rate drops, it will go off. So it's kind of like, it's basically like speed, with the bus. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the title comes from, right? Like the beast within. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of belaboring the point. Let's move on. Yeah, so for this whole episode, Ben is trying to think about what to do, and he's kind of like, the nurse is the only one left in the building because they've evacuated, and she kind of helps him and kind of looks up to him, and gives him a bit of admiration and attention. Gail accuses the sheriff of engineering the situation, but she's not sure why, and his response is just to flirt with her. And we find out that Artie's plan was to get to his old ward where everybody was like a PTSD or veteran or something. Like basically everybody wanted to die there, and he's like, I've got this bomb, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna blow all of us up that wanted to die. So yeah, we also learned that when Audie and Ben were on a hunting trip with their dad when they were kids, Audie accidentally shot and killed their father. So yeah. And Audie had dreams too, so everyone's having dreams in this episode. The sheriff kind of uses the thing to try and like win Caleb over, or like he's being very, you should just accept that I'm your dad, and fathers are really important, and look how you could end up without a father. Like you could end up like Audie or something if you don't have a father, which is like a pretty screwed up message. So the ambulance does come, and Ben kind of considers shooting his own brother. The nurse on duty with him, like the one remaining person in the hospital, like says that he shouldn't do that. Ben kind of says that Lucas is letting this happen, so he's aware of it too. And yeah, sheriff basically doesn't care about Audie or anyone, and is pretty open about that. But the doctor has an actual plan, and in response to that, the sheriff's like, I could have ended things at any time. And Gail's like, oh yeah, really, how? And he's like, cause I'm Lucas Buck, which is like actually a valid point. The situation with the ambulance goes wrong, like Ben kind of screws it up. Audie thinks he's out of time, so the sheriff makes a deal, and it wouldn't be an episode if the sheriff didn't make a deal with somebody. So he drops Ben in it with Audie by saying like, I'm gonna swap like my life for Ben's, and then the doctor punches the sheriff in the face. It's pretty great. He kind of hardly reacts. And then the sheriff hits the doctor back harder. And Caleb says that he hates him. And you know what? Don't hit the doctor in the face. He's cool. He's the guy from Medium. I like this guy, And Caleb's awesome. Like, he's so polite, but also speaks his mind. Like, he's cool. Anyway. So basically, the setup now, the doctor's had his hand, and he says to Ben that you'll have to operate on Audie to get the bomb out, because the doctor's hand is hurt. There's a tiny moment that sometimes I can't hear, like with the accent and the background music. Sometimes I like can't hear every single word, but I think Caleb said that he could hear Audie's prayers, and like Audie's like, you knew I could hear them or something. So he basically tells Audie to be a nicer person. And then Ben and Audie have a moment. They hug it out. And the sheriff says they're like a bad war movie, which, Audie in this episode is in a military uniform, so, they knock him out. Caleb is surprised that the sheriff came back for them, because he said he was going to swap himself, save his own butt, but that's not what he does. And then Ben has to do the operation on his brother to remove the bomb. And it's like pretty funny. Like, it's gruesome, and they also just like squirt blood in his face. And I find that funny because there's like a little bit of blood on the nurse, loads of blood just being like squirted on Ben, and the doctor is like right next to him and like just very serious, and there's like not a drop on him. It's just kind of funny. Very dramatic. They pull out a cigarette case, and for a second Ben's like, oh, it was just a cigarette case, And then he's like, oh no, it's a bomb, and he throws it down the hazard chute, and then he's a hero. Yeah, I mean, I know it's all engineered, but nice work, Ben, for like keeping your head and sorting things out with your brother. Yeah, so that's it. The sheriff and Ben are like a little bit easier with each other after this because Ben's like the town hero, and Caleb is kind of like unsure about the sheriff. So the very final scene is a little another dream sequence. Caleb dreams that the sheriff, he's back in that hallway that he was at the start in the asylum, and he's like looking around himself, and the sheriff says that when somebody loses their father, they lose their way, and it's kind of like trying to frighten Caleb into trusting him, I guess, or into spending time with him and stuff. But he says, you know, it's your dream to Caleb, and then he's like puts his hand out like, take my hand, and instead Caleb shoots him, and then he's like, it's my dream. So I think it's kind of interesting. Caleb's really aware in this episode, I think, that a lot of this is like the sheriff's kind of doing, and it's interesting because sometimes in this episode I'm not sure, the sheriff always has options because of like he has powers or something, you know, but a couple of times in this things don't go exactly the way he planned them, it appears. So I kind of wonder if, like, I guess we know that he has some kind of deal with the devil, but I don't know if the sheriff actually is the devil or whatever. So, you know, that still remains to be seen. So yeah, it's a good little episode. Nice and simple. And yeah, we're getting through these.